Okay, here we go. I'd like to call the Smithfield Town Council meeting together Tuesday, January 7th, 2025. The regular meeting convened at 7 p.m. There were no votes taken in closed session pursuant to Rhode Island General Law, Section 4246-4. Before we get into the prayer, I'd like a moment of silence for a few individuals who passed away. Mr. Ken Brown, who since 1971 was a firefighter here in the town of Smithfield, and also President Carter, who's the 39th president. So I can take a moment of silence. Thank you. I'd also like to take your attention to the Smithfield Police. The outstanding job that they did yesterday on apprehending that gentleman who broke into the house on Ridge Road. So, Chief, if you're watching, congratulations to you and your department. You're doing one hell of a job apprehending that gentleman this morning at 9:30 in the city of Pawtucket. I'd like to do a prayer. As we gather together tonight, we ask you for the spirit of unity to be present among us. Help us put aside any personal agendas, differences, and work together in harmony towards our common goal. Amen.
Amen.
Salute to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Emergency evacuation and health notification.
In the event the town council chambers has to be evacuated, immediately to my right, there's a stairwell that leads out to the side of the building, and the very rear of the council chambers, if you go through the door, to your right is exit to the front of the building. Do not use the elevator if there should be an emergency. Ladies' room and men's room, if you leave the rear door of the council chambers, men's room is on the right, ladies' room is up the stairway on the left.
Thank you, Mr. Interim Town Manager. Next thing on the agenda is a presentation. We have a special recognition for S. James Buzzum. Would you step forward, please? Raise your right hand, swear to tell the truth.
I've done that.
Mr. Buzzin, on behalf of the Town Council, I want to thank you for your 24 years of dedicated service to the Town Zoning Board, and you will be sorely missed. 24 years is a long time to do what you did for the town for $0. So thank you. And with that, I will give you your nameplate so you can put it on the mantle at home, and also a coin that we had made up from the town of Smithfield. So thank you, and we would like to take a picture with you if we may.
I would be proud of that.
Thank you.
No response, no phone call?
Shut up, I can do it. Potentially someone's gonna go here, but
I must be in this hall.
haven't heard, I don't hear of anyone. I'll send you an update of this because I had a couple people doing some movement.
Yeah, I agree.
I'll forgive him.
Again, Mr. Buzzum, thank you so much for your effort and your dedication to the town of Smithfield. You'll be sorely missed. Minutes. I move the minutes of the December 10th, 2024 executive session meeting to be held pursuant to the Rhode Island General Law, Section 42465A1, personnel to interview Cesaro Conti, Ian McLean, Armand Labrie, Brian Thornwood, Bruce Pomier, for possible appointment to the town boards or commissions, be approved and recorded and sealed. I have a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Nays? Ayes have it. Move the minutes of December 10, 2024 open session meeting to be approved as recorded.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Nays? Ayes have it. Move the minutes of December 17th executive session meeting pursuant to the Rhode Island General Laws 42465A1, personnel interview, Mark Bushy, Lisa Landia, Susan Grennan, Heather Coyer for the possible appointment to the Board of Boards and Commissions.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Nays? Ayes
One
have it.
abstention, and I wasn't present.
One abstention. Move the minutes of the December 17th open session meeting be approved as recorded. Have a
moved.
motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Nays?
Abstention.
One abstention. Consider, discuss, and act upon the following possible appointments and reappointments. Municipal Court Judge, reappointment with the term expiring in January of 2027.
Mr. President, I move that the town council reappoint William A. Poor Esquire to the position of municipal court judge for the term of January 2025 through January 2027.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Nays? Ayes have it. Probate Court Judge, reappointment with the term expiring January 2027.
Motion to appoint Terrence Turner Esquire to the probate court judge position from January 2025 through January 2027.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Nays? Ayes have it. Police Prosecutor Solicitor reappointment term expiring January 2027.
Motion to appoint Stephen R. Archibald Esquire to the police prosecution solicitor position for the term of January 2025 through January 2027.
Do I have a second? Second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Nays? Ayes have it. Town Solicitor reappointment the term expiring January 2027.
Motion to appoint Anthony M. Galone Jr. Esquire to the position of town solicitor for the term of January 2025 through January 2027.
I would move to amend the motion. That should be, there is no term for town solicitor under the town charter, so this would be an appointment at the pleasure of the town council.
So moved as amended.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Nays? Ayes have it. Zoning Board Solicitor appointment the term expiring January of 2027.
Motion to appoint David Igliozzi.
Oh,
Oh, sorry. Never mind.
Zoning Board.
Motion
Zoning
to
Board
table.
appointment, we're going to move to the next meeting. All those in favor?
Motion
Aye.
to table.
Table.
Second.
Second. Any discussion? All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Nays? Ayes have it. Planning Board. Solicitor to be reappointed, term expiring January 2027.
Mr. President, I move that we reappoint David Ursillo to the position of planning board solicitor to serve at the pleasure of the town council.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Nays? Ayes have it. Land Trust appointment with the term expiring September of 2028. Oh, sorry, 2026.
Mr. President, I move that we appoint Gregory Gerton to the Land Trust with a term expiring in September of 2026.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Signify aye. Nays? Ayes have it. Land Trust appointment, term expiring September of 2028.
Mr. President, I move that we appoint Roberto Alvarado to the Land Trust with a term expiring in September of 2028.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Nays? Ayes have it. Commissioner to appoint the term expiring 2025, Conservation.
Mr. President, I move that the town council appoint Mark Bushy to the Conservation Commission with a term expiring in July of 2025.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Nays, ayes have it. Conservation Commission appointment, the term expiring 2027.
Mr. President, I move that the town council appoint Heather Koya to the Conservation Commission with a term expiring in July of 2027.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Nays, ayes have it. Economic Development Commission appointment, the term expiring September 2025.
Mr. President, I move that the town council appoint Lisa Laidler to the Economic Development Commission with a term expiring in September of 2025.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor? Aye. Nays, ayes have it. Thank you. Public hearing, conduct a public hearing to consider and discuss act upon a code ordinance amendments in Chapter 321 entitled Taxation, Article 6, exempting and stabilization of taxes on qualifying commercial or manufacturing property.
Mr. President, I move that that the town council amend the draft as originally presented to change the period, this is 321-19, to change the period for a tax stabilization agreement from the proposed 20 years to 15 years, and that the owner, and add language that the owner and the town council may agree to a 5-year extension to an agreement upon a finding by the town council that such extension shall be beneficial to the town, and that the application for any extension must be received by the tax assessor by January 31st of the 15th fiscal year of the agreement.
Second.
Councilman, we're going to open up the public hearing first, and then we'll act on your amendment. Is that okay?
Thank you.
Going to open up the public hearing. Anyone like to speak on it?
Good evening. Tom Hodgkins, 200 Furnham Pike. My first question is some clarity on the proposed changes. When this was presented to the council on December 10th, the motion was that it would be fairly minor changes to the ordinance which mirrored the changes in the state law. A draft of the ordinance wasn't available to the public at that December 10th meeting. The changes that are now proposed in the ordinance are fairly substantial in terms of who can qualify for it and the process for it, and adding a different process for how the application would be received and then drafted. Is this a version of the ordinance that the council voted to put a public hearing on December 10th?
Yes.
Okay, I mean, because that just seems odd to me that the motion would say it's going to mirror state law, and that what's proposed here is something that goes much further than mirroring the state law and addresses many other issues that aren't in the state law that the council voted to amend last February. So it seems like that the scope of the changes here wasn't clear from the motion, but I will address some of those. In terms of the 20-year time period, I think we would be, in the state, the only municipality, if not one of a very few minority of municipalities, that did not have the either 15 or 20-year extension, or not extension, or 15 or 20-year duration, subject to an escalation clause to certain projects in the ordinance. I think we'd be the only, from what I had seen, the only municipality in the state that would permit a 20-year tax stabilization agreement on a value as low as $2 million. Many of the other municipalities to get or to qualify for a tax stabilization agreement in excess of 10 years would require a project to be at least 10 or 15 or more. Though that was from all the ordinances I reviewed from many of the other cities and towns. Is anyone aware of whether there's any other municipality in the state that would allow a 20-year tax agreement for a $2 million investment?
Chris, is the tax assessor aware?
the $2 million threshold is for a tax agreement up to 20 years.
Can you introduce yourself, Chris?
I'm sorry, Chris Celeste, Town Tax Assessor here, Town of Smithfield.
Thank you.
The $2 million threshold is to enter into an agreement up to 20 years. It's not proposed that we would give a 20-year on a $2 million investment, but the $2 million was the ultimate threshold to enter into any agreement per this. That's the purpose of the ordinance, is to qualify. So I doubt anyone would do a 20-year agreement on a $2 million project, but a 5-year, 3-year even is also allowed because it could be up to 20, but with a minimum of 2 million to even consider it a tax agreement at all.
And you said up to 20?
Correct, up
Okay.
to. But the 2 million is the threshold for even a 1-year, 2-year, 3-year, whatever it may be. There's no kind of step up, like if you want a 10, we didn't put any, that's up to the council once the qualifications are met and, the project is seen and kind of reviewed more in more depth.
Thank you.
Thank you. I think it would be advisable in that case to put some parameters in here on what would be qualifying for an agreement in excess of 10 years, rather than just have it, because as it's written, $2 million, you could qualify for the 20-year, and it would be subject to the council. But why not put some parameters in there to say, if you want to do that, that's what you need. And I think that's a fair point to give some notices to businesses that might want to come here too. So you don't have a business that all of a sudden says, well, I thought I could get 20 years for $2 million, and now they're trying to, hold the town hostage. And to that point, I think also to the extent that you're changing the application process, so now there'd be a draft agreement as part of the application that would be submitted to the assessor instead of the town clerk. I think many of the other municipalities in the state just set out in their ordinance what the terms of a tax stabilization agreement are. So year 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, this is what the percentage of the assessed value is that you're going to pay. And you just agree whether or not, the council agrees whether or not that's in the interest of the town. I think it would have a lot more clarity. I think it'd be, give more clarity to businesses if this is something they're truly interested in locating in Smithfield. And it would certainly put us on par with other municipalities if the idea is that we're competing against other municipalities to draw these folks in. You can just have in the ordinance, this is what we have. And then we don't have the issue that came up a month ago with, discussions happening without the council's knowledge or whatnot in terms of what numbers are being tossed around. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Anyone else like to speak on the ordinance?
Good evening, everyone. Kenneth Souza, 2 Williams Road. I don't have necessarily a comment specifically on this ordinance, but we all know what happened a year ago with Bay Crane. And I looked at that agreement, and there were so many problems with the agreement, not so much legal issues that a counselor can do a much better job than me. There were things in there that were negotiated in the contract that were ridiculous. And now I'm here kind of as a budget and financial review board because you're going to have to send it to us at some point. Please, the speed of these sometimes with volunteers and based on the timing, because they're all on December 31st and everybody waits to December 31st. In another month and a half, give or take, we're going to be starting budget season. And I'm a little dismayed at sort of sometimes what's happening. Let's do this and let's do this fast, meaning for us. We want to do a good job for you. We want to look at the numbers and see what the ramifications are to the tax base and whatever. I'm just asking with volunteers to not necessarily slow it down because I want business to come into this town and this state. But this one and the one previous, and we know what happened. It was a horrible situation because I put a lot of time into that spreadsheet and that contract, and it was negotiated wrong. And we got to change that. We got to change how we do this. And I know Councilor Galone is going to be getting more involved in this stuff and so on. Just be respectful of, especially during budget times, that we're juggling a lot of things, and to kind of dump that on us and say, we can have it in a week, which is kind of what we were told. I was told. That's all I ask, is that just, let's kind of balance the equities here, especially when we only meet once a month. So that's the issue. That's all
Well,
I'm asking.
I think the budget board,
I don't know who
I
was
think the
speaking.
budget board can utilize any process that they wish in order to properly examine these applications as they come to the board.
Right.
I think the only requirement in the ordinance is that the budget board report back to us within 30 days.
Correct.
And that the board make a written report to us
Right.
as to the reasons for their recommendation.
Yeah, I mean, that's sort of what I'm suggesting, because when I was originally told about this in October, it was like, it's gonna happen, it's gonna move. And I'm like, can you just be respectful of who we are and what, you know, the kinds of things we're juggling, not necessarily in October. That's all I would suggest. We're getting into a crunch time. We're gonna be starting to get into that weeds pretty quickly in the next month and a half. That's all I'm asking. And just do what's right for the town. I want that company in here. I said it time after time. And I think we got to look, as the previous gentleman said, let's look for other businesses that we can get in here and increase tax revenue, increase income tax revenue, and all that other great stuff for the state of Rhode Island and for the town.
Dr. Souza, I'm trying to read between the lines of what you're saying. Are you in favor of the January 31st deadline? Or are you saying that's too late?
That's
From a
what
budget
that's
board-
what I'm alluding to.
Okay,
This is
so
what I'm
that's what I
sort of
figured.
alluding to a little bit. Even the December 31st can be, because it doesn't mean we're going to get it in January, because it just means they have to give you a first piece of paper, if you get what I'm saying. But it could keep
Yes.
morphing itself into a month, 2 months. That's all I'm asking. If you want us to do a good job, and the Bay Crane, I did all the work, and Mr. Celeste knows, a lot of work on that spreadsheet to try to forecast what the heck was going on. We can't be juggling that in the middle of that. Now, I don't know what the rules are in terms of when people have to apply and all that. I just would be, there's got to be a second deadline that we have to move forward at some point in time. And I realized what happened a few weeks ago, and I wasn't pleased by it either. But just, we're getting close. We're trying to do a good job for you, all of you.
Thank you. Thank you for your comments.
Thank you.
Any others on the public comment? Hearing none, I'm going to close the public comment, and it's open for discussion.
Mr. President, as I've said before, I feel that a 20-year tax stabilization agreement is too long. Tax stabilization agreements should be rare and only provided where the benefits to the town are clear and extensive. A previous town council also thought so, as they limited tax stabilization agreements to 10 years, which I am very reluctant to change. 10-year agreements seem more than sufficient to me, since most of the capital investment occurs within the first 5 to 10 years. Although the proposed ordinance here allows the council to make agreements up to 20 years and does not require a 20-year agreement, I fear that having the 20-year language in the ordinance will create the expectation that agreements will all be for 20 years. So new businesses coming here will have that expectation when they see that 20 years. The Rhode Island Department of Commerce requires 12 years for tax stabilization agreements where they are providing any subsidy to cover the town's cost. Therefore, my compromise amendment to a 15-year maximum agreement will cover this requirement. I've also added the possibility for a 5-year extension upon mutual agreement of the parties. To summarize, a maximum 15-year agreement with the possibility of a 5-year extension is a much more reasonable amendment to the current 10-year maximum ordinance. It allows us to still be competitive with other cities and towns without creating expectations of overly long agreements. So I urge the passage of my amendment. I also think at some point we should consider amending this ordinance to increase the amount of money required to be involved from $2 million, as Mr. Hodgkins suggested, for agreements that are more than 10 years. Thank you.
So we have a motion, we have a second, correct? Any more discussion? Councilman, want to move?
Yeah, I think I've already made the motion. It's been seconded. We've had the discussion. So to be clear, what we're voting on is my amendment
Correct.
to the proposed ordinance.
So we have a motion, we have a second. Any other discussion? Hearing none. Can we have a roll call vote, please?
Member Toppy,
Aye.
Member Whitfield,
No.
Member Ioannoni,
Aye.
Vice President Bovis,
Nay.
and President Tassone.
No. So the amendment fails.
Now you're gonna vote on that.
Now we're going to vote on the amendment as proposed.
Mr. President,
Yeah, ordinance.
Mr. President, in the alternative, I would like to make a motion to pass the ordinance as proposed. Contrary to Councilor Ioannoni's recommendation, I believe the language of up to 20 years is very clear to the point where the businesses would be able to recognize that that is the maximum threshold. I think businesses, as well as their attorneys and other applicants applying, would easily be able to differentiate between what their investment is worth from a year's standpoint and be able to estimate their tax stabilization term accordingly. That being said, I know the state law, as well as other municipalities, I've done some research, all similarly have that up to 20-year language. I think it's important to stay consistent in order to be competitive. And shortening that stabilization, I think, does the opposite. So I would move that the ordinance be passed as drafted.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
Yeah, I would just be curious which towns or cities had the 20.
I did some research today. Providence was one of them. I don't want to say it exactly. I just via Google search. I know Providence for sure. There was about 2 or 3 others that I saw. I didn't check every municipality though.
Were any comparable to Smithfield as far as the size of the town or city?
Comparable in population? Is that what you mean?
Right.
Probably. The reason I mentioned Providence specifically for that stabilization is because Providence is a town that has many businesses coming in, tax stabilization being something that's very important to that municipality versus we're a little newer in that category. So looking at something like Providence, a city like that, what they're doing to manage their businesses in town and their taxes, I think is important to consider in Smithfield. Especially as we have new businesses coming into town that are investing significantly higher values than we've seen in the past. So some of those newer businesses come to mind where they're investing upwards of $90, $100 million into the buildings, which is not something we've really seen before in town.
Any other discussion?
Yeah, I definitely don't like to compare Smithfield, a town like Smithfield, to Providence for almost any reason.
Well, to clarify, Councilman Ioannoni, I'm not comparing the town of Smithfield to the city of Providence. I'm comparing the language in their drafted ordinances in that specific category. So I'm not comparing it in any other way, specifically that ordinance and only that ordinance.
You know, I too think 20 years is entirely too long. And just like, for example, if you put the end salary range on a job description, the candidate is going to want the end range. You know, they're going to want what's in their best interest. Obviously, that's the whole point of a tax stabilization agreement. I think the 15 and giving them the option of the 5 is not saying, no, we're not going to give you 5 more years. It just gives that council at the time to say, reevaluate, you know, is this in the best interest of the town, the taxpayers? That's who this needs to ultimately benefit. And this is leaning very towards, you know, the opposite, which I think is not a good thing.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, I'll call the vote.
Member Toppy,
No.
Member Whitfield,
Yes.
Member Ioannoni,
No.
Vice President Bovis,
Aye.
and President Tassone.
Yes. Motion passes. Next thing on the agenda is B, scheduled public hearing on February 4th, 2025, to consider discussion of the act upon zoning ordinances and amendments to Article 9, Section 9.5, entitled Davis Liquid Waste Superfund Site, Groundwater Protection Overlay District. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
I just have a question. Under Section C, it refers to Section 9.3. Is that a misprint? Because this is Section 9.5 we're dealing with.
Looks like a misprint.
Thank you for catching that.
In the August 22 date, I'm assuming that's wrong as well. Should be 2024.
Yes.
Do we have-
That's right or it's wrong? Oh,
We all set? Yeah. We have a motion. Put it on the agenda for February 4th. We have a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Nays? Ayes have it. Conduct a public hearing to consider discussion and act upon approving the renewal of the intoxication beverage license as listed as applied, subject to compliance with all state regulations, local ordinances, and certificate of good standing.
Motion,
Hang
these are
on.
all set, right? Okay.
They're all set
Before I
to
make the
go.
motion, move that we approve the licenses for Cedar Spill and Val's English Tea and Pie Shop victualling license.
Have a second. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Nays? Ayes have it. Conduct a public hearing to consider discussion, act upon approving renewal of the following one particular only license to include renewal to the extended hours of operations as applied, the subject to compliance with all state regulations, which would be Cumberland Farms. I'll open up the public hearing. Anyone like to speak on this issue? Hearing none, I'll close the public hearing. I have a motion.
Motion to approve.
Do I have a second? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Nays? Ayes have it. Licenses. Number 9, consider this act upon approving 2 one-day beer and wine licenses for Smithfield Senior Center as follows. New Year's Eve party held on Thursday, January 16th at 12 o'clock to 3 p.m. Mardi Gras party to be held on Thursday, February 20th, 2025, from 12 to 3 p.m. The parties will take place at the Smithfield Senior Center at 1 William Hawkins Trail at 12 to 3 p.m. as applied, subject to all state regulations and local ordinances.
So moved.
Do I have a second? Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Ayes have it. Consider, discuss, act upon approving renewal of 2 particular-only licenses listed as applied, subject to compliance with all state regulations and local ordinances. XL Holdings, Hampton Inn Suites, Providence/Smithfield, 945 Douglas Pike. Target Store, T1404, DBA Target Store, T1404, 371 Putnam Pike in Smithfield. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Ayes have it. There is no old business and new business. Consider discussion and act upon authorizing requests for qualifications for architectural design services for the RIDE necessary to the school construction Stage 2 application on behalf of the school department.
Good evening, Town Council members. I'm Dawn Bart, Superintendent of Schools. Joining me are my colleagues, Melissa Devine, Director of Finance and Operations, and Angela Mancucci, Director of Facilities. Also joining us, in case there are any technical questions, Patrick Robler, our Project Manager of Colliers. I'm here this evening on behalf of the school department to request approval to go out to bid for architectural services for the high school renovation project Stage 2 and 2 emergency projects. In the packet that you received, just to highlight some of the areas in Stage 2, which includes the 5-year plan for RIDE, The priority projects include, renovations to the high school bathrooms, renovations to the culinary room and the little theater at the high school, the high school emergency generator and fire suppression upgrades, partial roof replacement, and elevator renovations at the high school and at the middle school. The emergency projects under health and safety would include relocating the high school intensive special education room from its current location to more the center of the school within the library media center, having those rooms ADA compliant and any other necessities in order for those to be usable rooms for special population of students. The second emergency project would be designing the high school culinary arts room to meet the RIDE specifications. Are there any questions? I certainly can continue.
Any questions of the council?
No, just thank you for sending the information last time. Appreciate it, for answering the questions.
Thank you.
Any questions on this side?
Madam Superintendent, I just have a question. It's a little bit unrelated, but also kind of related. So please humor me. The reason for the kitchen is because of the CTE program, right? Trying to kind of bolster that?
Absolutely. So, Councilwoman, it's a great question and directly related. We're at the very last stage for our CTE approval for culinary arts. We've met every requirement of RIDE, including hiring the teacher who has professional license as a chef, having 3 years of course sequences and implementing those sequences. The last part, based on our preliminary review by RIDE for certification, when they came through last year, said some renovation would need to occur in the room. That immediate, again, preliminary, was to take out the floor and to replace it with a pitched floor, with a drain, and to add a sink. We would, with the architect, have RIDE and the Department of Health come back in, certify that those are the minimum requirements for full certification as a CTE, and at the same time, also have the architect look at what this room, which is a terrific space, could be were there to be additional funding available.
And related to that, is that the only CTE, is that going to be the only CTE kind of qualified room at the end of this, or are there others?
Well, we currently have 5, so this will be the 6th. I have the paperwork that I've shared with the interim town manager showing that we have been accepted to be called a CTE. So that will be the 6th for our school. We have also recently received funding and approval for next year to have biomedical engineering as an offering in our science department, and our science teachers and of course our students are particularly excited. That is one of the other CTE areas in which we lose many students to other programs. There are, according to RIDE, very few biomedical engineering, and that would not take any construction dollars or renovations or change in personnel. We actually have everything in place. We just need to do the professional development and start the sequencing. So we actually, unrelated to this construction, if this goes forward and we're able to finish up, for instance, the floors, we'll have 2 new CTE programs starting this next fall.
Is there any plans with the law classroom for CTE, or no?
The law is a CTE.
Already?
It is,
Okay.
yes, it is. We also have computer science, cybersecurity, and several others. And I'll be happy to send you a list. It is on our website, and I'll send those to you. So it is an exciting time right now at the high school.
Thank you, Madam Superintendent.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? I'll entertain a motion. Have a second. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Nays, ayes have it. Next on the agenda is public comment.
Thank you very much.
Any public comment? Hearing none, motion to adjourn. Do I have a second? Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.